I really love storytelling. It means a great deal to me. I think where I got my love for storytelling isn't necessarily from anime or watching television. I don't think I knew I was taking in stories back in the day. When we look at a movie, when we look at a musical, when we look at a cartoon even, they are such elaborate pieces of machinery working together to create a entirely immersive experience. And we don't realize how wonderful that is, or we don't realize who's behind it. I follow Matthew Colville, a really wonderful talker, mostly a D&D channel. They spoke to how if you are an artist, the art that you're going to fall into is the first art that you see intention behind, right? The first piece of art that you look for the creator of. If you were a singer, maybe you would have thought, hey, who is this artist? What about this artist makes them able to create art? Or if you're a movie buff or you're an upcoming director, you might have found a director who resonated with you and goes, this hits me to my core. Who was the one directing the camera, right? For a lot of people, the medium of their art is often set by the first piece of art that really resonated with them. I think we all have the capacity to be artists, but if you are an artist, maybe look back and see who your formative creator was. I used to think that my first love in terms of storytelling and writing are my medium, are things that I love. And at first I thought it was Rick Riordan's Lightning Thief series. It was one of the first series I read. I was not really a Harry Potter kid growing up. And in reading that series, I really connected with Percy's otherness, right? And the way that the text rationalized the otherness of Percy to be strengths, to be things celebrated instead of things that are to be looked down upon or looked away from. I always really appreciated that. I think without that, I might have grown up to be much more timid and quiet and less self-assured. Now, I did grow up a little bit of a chunibyo because of it, thinking that, hey, my quirks make me exciting or make me interesting or make me different. But I think that's a better outcome, even if you annoy the kids around you. I think it's a better outcome to be cringe but loving oneself versus hating oneself and not knowing why you're different. That being said, I used to think that Rick Riordan was the first person that I looked upon and thought, wow, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. This is something, I want to move in people's lives the same way that this series moved in me. But then I realized before that first of all, as much as I love writing, recently I've been watching Savannah Brown, who is a poet. They create collections of poetry, and where I understood them from is they do spoken word in the form of these 15-20 minute videos on YouTube, and they're all fantastic. If you need to hear somebody else talk about being a creative and creating, Savannah Brown is a wellspring, a font of inspiration and knowledge. I feel like a lot of what I do is in pale imitation to that vibe. And I realized that listening to them, spoken word's pretty cool. But unlike Savannah Brown, who once said that when I don't understand the world, when I'm confused, when I don't know what's going on, what I do is I pick up a pen and start writing. And I thought that was brilliant. That was beautiful. It's part of the reason why I don't think I can become a visual artist, because artists often use their medium to make sense of the world. And I think that's beautiful. But I've never really used visual art to make sense of the world like that. And the more that I come to think about it, although I like to think I'm good at writing, I've never really used writing to make sense of the world either. So what is my craft? If I love storytelling, if we all to some degree love storytelling, and the way we get into it is by viewing these different mediums, visual art, music, writing, what was mine? What was my first love in terms of art? And I realize I have this vague, uncrystallized memory. I couldn't have been more than 10. A TA, along with like 8 or 9 other young students, sort of sat around a big circle, and I'm not sure whether it was a like creative arts club or something like that. I don't even remember. It's so far back. But I think when I realized that there was intentionality behind storytelling and art, that there was somebody behind these images I've been consuming, these songs I've been listening to, these texts I've been reading, the moment I realized that was when this one person, regaled us with stories of the Odyssey, particularly, if I recall correctly, the story of Polyphemus the giant Cyclops, and Odysseus slaying them, as well as Circe, who turned men to pigs. The way that this TA spoke, the way that they moved, was breathtaking, completely enrapturing. If you find my candor in speech at all compelling, I am simply shadow to that image. If you were ever a TA teaching the stories of Greek myth to kids in the early 2000s, you left a great impact on my life, and I want you to just wave your hand and say hello. If you would. No pressure, of course. But I realized that was my first love. And I realized that the storytelling that is most compelling to me isn't written at all. It's always been spoken for me. It's always been an oral tradition for me. The way I've always loved to impact people, to interact with people, and to show them stories is by talking to them. Because I received that gift from this person who modeled it so perfectly. I'm a pretty good DM, I like to think, because of it. And what is Dungeons & Dragons but the tradition of storytelling around a fire transposed into the modern era? I like these little talks because I feel as though I find myself a little bit more with you all. As much as I love writing, I have a poor stamina for it. So it's good to do that here. Ding ding, 10 minutes.